Many thanks, Jules, and kia ora, everyone. We're filming from Wellington. The three of us will be sharing this presentation about the Lumi Drug Scan Pilot, which is the handheld mobile drug scanning device. Dion is streaming in from Auckland due to the COVID level 3 restrictions up there, so unfortunately he couldn't join us today. The Lumi Drug Scan Pilot is an excellent example of police and ESR working together to produce a novel and world-first solution. What I'm going to do very shortly is to play you a video which will give you an overview and provide some context about the pilot. And then each of us are going to talk you through how the project was undertaken and to illustrate the key components that supported its success. So if I could just ask for the video to be played now, and then we'll continue on.
The seizure of more than $100 million worth of methamphetamine, or P, is evidence international syndicates are targeting New Zealand, police say.
Police say they are putting drug dealers on notice after a major meth bust in Wellington.
Police intelligence documents obtained by Newshub show the meth trade in New Zealand is showing no sign of slowing down.
As police officers, we understand the harm caused by illicit drug use in our communities every day. Wastewater results tell us that methamphetamine, cocaine and MDMA are amongst the most commonly used illicit drugs in our country. Every day, police officers across our country do amazing work to stop illicit drugs from getting into our communities. Our evidence-based policing centre have partnered with ESR to develop world-leading technology to trial in your district. Frontline staff came up with the idea to develop this technology. Now we ask for your help to demonstrate the value that it's going to add.
My name's Constable Wepiha. I'm from the Manurewa Police Station. Under the Search and Surveillance Act 2012, I intend to search your vehicle for drugs. The Lumi Drug Scan is a handheld device which allows us to screen substances in the front line, anywhere, anytime.
Within seconds you will get a result, and it will create a PDF report that gets emailed directly to you.
So how does it work?
Lumi testing works with small samples of powders, crystals or tablets, anything large enough to put on the testing window. When testing a sample, you can place it within the bag directly on the device. Analysis can be completed through the plastic without having to handle the sample. This initiative is the first time a forensic laboratory and a police force have combined to deliver real-time screening of drug samples as a project for field use. The Lumi Drug Scan result is a screening test only. If you need confirmation of what's in your sample, send it to ESR's laboratory and we'll complete full laboratory analysis for you.
So police were dispatched to a disorder incident. Upon arrival at the scene, police spoke to both female and male party, and the female party disclosed to police that the male party was in possession of some sort of drugs. So we used the Lumi Drug Scan and we were able to confirm that the white substance was actually methamphetamine. We've decided to take a health-based approach and to refer our male party to a health agency where hopefully he's going to get the help that he needs. Today we've stopped a car with expired Waffen rego. The Lumi Drug Scan indicated that the white substance that was found in the backseat of the vehicle was actually methamphetamine. We've decided to arrest the suspect and transport him back to the police station where he will be questioned further in relation to the drugs that were found in his vehicle.
Remember, the Lumi Drug Scan is a screening tool only and results are not evidential. If your matter is going to court, you still need to send your sample to the ESR lab for evidential testing.
We want to target, test and track the effectiveness of this trial. So if you have any comments or feedback, please email ebp@police.gov.nz. Some users will be asked to participate in focus groups.
So make sure to read the provided instructions carefully and make good use of the Lumi Drug Scan during our trial period.
So the Lumi Drug Scan was developed through a collaborative approach between New Zealand Police and ESR, combining frontline knowledge and scientific expertise to respond to a defined problem statement. The co-design addresses a problem-defined opportunity to undertake an evaluative-based review and provide evidence to inform our decision making. The pilot was conducted across 5 districts over a 6-month period between July 2020 and January 2021. What I'm going to do now, if technology works with me, is to share my screen. I've got a few slides and we're going to talk through those slides. If I can bring that PowerPoint up. Thank you. If we could just flick through to the second slide. So Lumi responds to current limitations identified by the front line. So our current process, thousands of unknown samples are intercepted by police every year. Many samples do not get analysed, and the current in-field process is cumbersome, it's not readily available, and or expensive, such as the NIC tests and other large non-portable devices. Forensic lab evidence is reserved for only selected cases, and those going through to prosecution. Health and safety concerns around the exposure to unknown substances when conducting the NIC test is also of concern to us, as the substance has to be opened and put into the chemical solution to be mixed. So therefore, currently, our in-field decision-making relies on circumstances and training, and it's not informed by evidence. Next slide, please. So the Lumi Drug Scan is a real-time solution for frontline police. It has 3 key components. So it combines a small handheld near-infrared device where samples are scanned, and the officer uses a custom-built app on their phone to connect the device, recording case-specific information, including a photo of the substance scanned. The scanned sample is analysed in real time using machine learning drug detection models hosted in the cloud. The officer gets real-time results that are generated in front of the person that they have intercepted the sample from, as well as a PDF report is emailed to them summarising the result. Lumi scans for 3 drug types: methamphetamine, cocaine, and MDMA, which is based on data that these are the 3 most harmful drugs that impact on our community and are the most prevalent based on wastewater analysis. Additional drug types are also proposed for future use and to be added to the library. The PowerPoint's available. That's right. Go to the next slide. Thank you. So the Lumi Drug Scan value. Ultimately, Lumi is about enabling the frontline to get real-time screening results. It is a decision-making tool where our frontline are informed by evidence. With the benefits supporting the frontline, districts and headquarters, this ultimately helps police achieve our business, and it supports the Commissioner's 3 strategic priorities of safe home, safe roads, and safe communities. So we have highlighted 6 key points that made the pilot a success, and we will go into these in more detail. But just to highlight these 6 key points. First one, end user input into the design. This is the co-design of the application itself, which are on the officer's mobile phones. Integrating with existing workflow. So that's supporting their decision making. Bringing end users along. We conduct numerous workshops with frontline staff to make sure it is fit for purpose. Confidence of stakeholders. We need to make sure that we attained the appropriate permissions prior to the launch of the pilot. Pilot testing and iterative development, the pilot itself. And finally, evaluation of outcomes, the evaluation plan, which Sarah will be covering off. I'm going to hand over to Dion now, who will talk through the next 4 points in more detail.
Thank you, Simon. As Simon mentioned, it was a really excellent opportunity for ESR's forensic scientists to work right alongside police and their expertise to co-design the solution. That was one of our first key principles for the project. It meant we started with a defined problem statement, and through a series of co-design workshops, we iterated on the opportunities to deliver a solution, giving us a chance to repeatedly test the proposals we were imagining and get end user input into the design and workflow. One of the key examples of this is the workflow of the mobile phone app installed on officers' phones. Through co-design workshops, we designed not only the look and feel, but the functionality and the information that would be required to be entered during the officer's assessment of a sample and the subsequent field testing. This testing process and co-design led to confidence with police officers, knowing they not only had input into it, but it actually fitted directly with their activities they'd be undertaking in the field. The second key principle for the project that really led to success, if we can go to the next slide, is our understanding of where this solution would be integrated into the workflow that officers were undertaking. It was critical for us to position Lumi as a decision-enabling tool. We wanted Lumi to sit in between the existing processes that officers were undertaking. And here on screen, you can see on the left-hand side, we've got an existing workflow around situations where an officer might intercept a suspected drug sample. And on the right-hand side, the traditional next stage of that is to make some decisions about what to do when confronted with the sample. Lumi's positioned right in the middle of this existing workflow. It provides a way to test a sample in real time, generate a real-time result, and have that science, that result, support the decision-making that the officer was undertaking. By integrating with an existing workflow, we not only tackled the problem that police were dealing with, but we enabled a solution that delivers science and to support the decision-making that officers were already undertaking, helping them get the right decision more quickly and more easily by providing answers in real time that led to better outcomes for the police officer and the person they were working with. The next slide, please. The third part of our strategy to developing and implementing the Lumi Drug Scan Service was understanding how we would get our users on board. It was important that we brought them along for the ride in much the same way as we did with co-design workshops. As a result, we undertook a number of workshops and training events. We would work directly with users to understand how they would work with the system, but also integrate them into the process. Through these interactions, we developed e-learning modules, on-site training sessions, practical examples to get familiar with the testing process and understand the way the system works. We also ensured that there was good understanding of officers of actually what was happening inside the system. When the data was captured and presented to a machine learning model, what was happening inside the system that enabled a real-time result to be returned to them. The other aspect of this approach was that it gave us a really good opportunity to understand the bigger opportunity that we had to work with police around this process. And as you can see on the next slide, we moved from considering Lumi as a physical concept, an app, a device, and a machine learning model that you can see represented on the left-hand side, to understanding that that was only really part of the service offering. And we built and created the other components you can see on the screen here. Key aspects of those were understanding that Lumi was really about managing data and giving police confidence in the decision-making, having machine learning models that were robust and forensically validated, so results were generated that provided police with confidence. The added value from this is to move beyond a result that supports an officer in the field, but to understand what a summation of that data might mean when we think about the analytics and the trends over time across the district and across New Zealand as a whole. The integration of user support and training ensured that our users had confidence in using the service and knew where to go if they needed some troubleshooting or support. We also ensured that right across the service from end to end, we had confidence in the devices in the system by ensuring we had validation protocols and support systems in place. And through the process of co-design and integrated workshops, and our piloting process, we took the insights to build future improvements that supported the next stage of the Lumi development. Next slide, thanks. The fourth component that led to a really successful pilot was ensuring that we could get the support and confidence of our organisations, both across the ESR and police, but also ensure that all of the variety of stakeholders who are key players in the way police interact when they are out in public, the other parts of the process around health and judicial outcomes that may come from an interception of a drug, had confidence in what we'd built and the way it was being delivered. As a result, we built a permission to launch process that gave us a whole collection of undertakings and documentation and approval stages that we could collate together and use as a basis for having confidence in not only how the service worked and how it was implemented, but how it would be used and how the information would be integrated into the decision-making that officers would undertake. This included both internal testing and analysis and validation, but also really importantly, external insight and input into that approval process, including ethics approval, independent security audits, and engagement with community stakeholders through communication plans. And I'll now hand over to Sarah to talk through the evaluation of the pilot.
Thanks, Dion. Can I have the next slide, please? Brilliant, thanks. So we decided on a formative evaluation approach for the Lumi project. And the reason we did this is because there's very little research in this area, and we had a limited number of devices. So we had 25 of the devices that you saw that you could actually scan baggies on, and that 25 had to be spread out between our 5 districts. We also needed a proof of concept. So could the device and the app work outside of the lab environment and go into a police environment where the device would sit in a heli case inside the back of a police squad car? And it also provided us with an opportunity to learn as we went and develop and continue getting better. On the table on screen, as you can see, our main aims and the measures that we used. The questions didn't fit, so just for a flavour of the kinds of things that we were interested in was we wanted to know if Lumi had an impact on officer decision-making, whether it changed the way that officers interacted with those found in possession of suspected drugs, to test the practical application of our training for police officers. Was it easy to follow? Was it engaging? Did officers feel confident in using the product? Was the classroom training appropriate for what officers actually went out and experienced in the field? We were also interested in the accuracy of Lumi in the lab versus how accurate it would be in the field, and how well it would stand up to constant use by lots of different people. Next slide, please. So what we ended up with was our 5 districts in a 6-month pilot. Our districts came on board at different times, and that was partly because we were a small team and we wanted to adequately support them. We had no idea if the project was going to crash and burn after the first 2 districts were onboarded, so we wanted to give ourselves a little bit of time. So phase 1, we started with counties Manukau and Central, and that was on the 27th of July last year. Phase 2 was Canterbury, who started on the 7th of September, and phase 3 was Auckland City and Waitemata, who started on the 19th of October. And our devices typically were spread over public safety teams, road policing, crime squad, and a little bit of custody as well. As you can see from the graph on screen, it shows the number of events and the number of scans by district. So an event is similar to what New Zealand Police would call an occurrence, and a scan is each time a bag or something has been put on the device and literally scanned. So if I was to stop and search a person and I found 2 bags of white powder on them, it would be 1 event and 2 separate scans. As you can see from the graph, counties Manukau has the most events and scans, but that's because they started earlier as well. So the next slide, please. So as a result of our formative, some of the results from our formative evaluation, with that, the Lumi results for the bags that came back in after they've been tested in the field. So we got accuracy of 92.6%, which is really high, and we were really excited about. So that means if an officer scanned it in the field and the scan came back as methamphetamine, it was very highly likely that the same thing would happen in the lab. After training, our officers felt confident in their ability to use Lumi. They were able to correctly answer multi-choice questions in most cases. So after our training, we did some post-training testing. We got really high results for that as well. And if you look at the graph on screen, you can see the percentage of scan result returns by district. We've got our cocaine, MDMA, and methamphetamine, and then we also have a category called unknown. And unknown is the result that came up on the phone app if it was anything other than one of those three drugs. So unknown could have essentially been anything from icing sugar to ketamine. So obviously our officers were told to handle it carefully, not knowing exactly what it could be. You can see we've got slightly different profiles for drugs across the district. So Canterbury sees a high proportion of MDMA and Central a high proportion of meth compared to other districts. Next slide, please. So from the implementation perspective, how do we think we went? Our two biggest challenges for Lumi were the Bluetooth connection and the device battery life. These two things have been largely addressed by ESR, doing a bit of work in the background to get those, the Bluetooth connecting a bit better and the battery lasting a little bit longer. All of the devices actually survived the pilot without any significant issues. We did have some kits come back without charger cables, but that's okay. That's a pretty standard charger cable. So we're not too worried about that. For ourselves, we acknowledge that we had some areas where we could have improved. We could have had a bit of clearer and earlier communication in some aspects of our implementation. But overall, the staff across EBPC and ESR felt that they worked really well together, good communication, appreciation of each other's skills. And we felt that the experience of bringing Lumi through this pilot was positive, and we learned a lot ourselves about doing this, and we had plenty of growth opportunities. Next slide, please. So thank you very much for watching. For more information, you can contact one of us, details on screen. If it's a more technical drug question, please ask Dion. More policey, evaluation-y questions, myself or Inspector Welsh.